Monday was the first official day of the full 2026 offseason for Penn State football, and now on Tuesday, the entire college football world is in the offseason. Indiana is your national champion over the Miami Hurricanes in one of the most entertaining games that we've had in a while for a national championship game. We can talk about it today. That's where I want to start because it's the most important thing. It's the biggest thing that's happened in college football last night, and I do think that there are implications and ramifications and storylines, et cetera, we can talk about as how they relate to Penn State football, and I think that's what everyone wants to do, Fitz. First off, welcome to the show. We've been having this conversation about Curt Cignetti and Matt Campbell and what's the translation, like all those things of what Indiana is and what they've done and what Penn State is and what they're trying to do. So I want to start there, but first off, pleasantries. I know it's not great for the algorithm to say hello to the people on the show, but I believe in courtesy and kindness. And so Nate, Fitz, how are you guys doing? Fitz, what's going on?
Oh, not much. It's cold, and so like I'm like a reptile that's moving very slowly because of the cold these days. I'm even green today. That's where I'm at. And hey, kudos to these guys coming to Penn State for the spring semester. Welcome from UCLA. Welcome from Texas. Welcome from all over the place. It's not wrong when we say that this is a different atmosphere for some. So, but no, I'm good. Watched a very good football game last night. Enjoyed what we saw. Enjoyed something different other than the same teams that have been playing. And congratulations to Indiana, because that's a heck of a story, heck of a job, heck of a. Oh, we get to spend the next year talking about how the outlier is going to be the new normal, which I don't think it is, but that's the conversation in front of us. Can't wait to put on those boots and trudge in that stuff.
You got to shovel it. We're on the internet. You cleaning out the barn. We're mucking out the barn. Takes me back when I would go down to the barn and do it in days like this, where it's cold. It's cold outside. So appreciate all the people out there doing all of those jobs while I'm sitting in here, because I was like, no, thank you. Not going to do that for the rest of my life. Nate, how are you doing today? What's on your mind? I know basketball's been top of mind for you. You've been doing a lot of work over there, but did you watch the game last night? You were watching the game last night. You were in the in-game thread over at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com.
Let's not get carried away on basketball.
I wasn't trying to bring up a conversation. I was just trying to say, Nate is nice. Also
nice of you.
Like Greg, Nate's got multiple hats he has to wear.
Look, I think it's important to identify a cheater when you see one, and Indiana. Jeez, I'm kidding. Okay. Look, the funniest part of that storyline, and look, like, obviously, if you are in the Twitter sphere at all, people are alluding to it, and that has kind of been an undercurrent of the playoff run. But what is more in your face and like so obvious is you could pick out like 15 to 20 just plays, right? Mm-hmm. That Indiana has made, like, just this repeated knack for coming up in these really critical moments. I mean, they have just been excellent. And, I think offensively is where at least I gravitate towards, right? Certainly Mendoza himself making plays. The fourth down carry last night for the touchdown was obviously iconic, but also just this as it relates to Penn State, and a thing that has not happened for Penn State in, like it started as 1 year, and then 2 years, and then 3 years, and now 4 years. But like this idea of, like, in the moment of clutch, just these iconic catches that receivers are making for the quarterback. And, I think it's a thing that with the transition to Rocco Beck and this new, set of receivers that they're going to have at Penn State, it's like, at minimum, everyone who's watching it will have a fresh perspective as maybe.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, they're going to try
that's
it.
that can happen to Penn State.
And they're going to try it. I think that's the big thing with this offense is they're actually going to throw some of those passes for those receivers that have a chance to come down with it. While
we're on it, I mean, Allen Robinson doesn't make that catch unless you've got the similar situation where you're just huffing it downfield, hoping that your guy can do it. And they have not had that in the last couple of years, and you kind of miss it. So there's that. And then there's this whole flip side of Penn State faced four. I'm just off the top of my head, 4 of the top catches in college football this year. Just unbelievable, like physics defining catches. And hey, back shoulder fades make catches look really good. Like they make tough catches look even tougher. But you got the one along the sideline against Indiana, the back of the end zone against Indiana, the one against Rutgers, and then the one we forget about, the Villanova catch that was just unreal. Like I was standing behind the end zone and I thought the ball was coming to me, and all of a sudden the dude, one hand goes up and grabs the ball. I mean, it's just it's amazing. First off, I love great football, great execution, no matter where it happens. If you're in the presence of greatness and you see it, you're like, okay, give them their flowers and go. We see a lot of it on the defensive side for Penn State, especially this season. So it's just amazing to look at that and see these guys make those plays. And when you're talking about scouting, when you're talking about finding guys that can eventually be your game breakers, that doesn't mean just be faster and run away from everybody. It means going up and be able to make those catches. And Penn State has been lacking that a little bit in the last couple of years. And I'd like to see them move back in that direction.
Yeah, I have been thinking a lot about this, especially in the context of last night, where having scouted Indiana and watched their defensive scheme and their players, I probably underrated their players more than I should have, but I still thought throughout the playoff they would find some team. They'd go up against some team that had NFL bona fide, like first-round picks on both sides of the ball. And at a certain point, they would get out-talented because what elevated that Indiana team? To me, like, this was the ultimate team and scheme versus Jimmy's and Joe's, right? Ruben Bain, the defensive line in general from Miami. Maui Noah, the right tackle, I briefly for like 6 months was a stringer and a freelancer for the Miami site for on 3, and I scouted this kid and I'm like, this is going to be an amazing NFL offensive lineman someday as a senior coming from, I think it was IMG, and he's now at the end of that career where he was that, and then they couldn't run the football, and it just, to me, what I saw was the pure distillation of we are going to find the right players for the scheme, and we are going to demand that they execute and produce every play. Like there's no margin, there's no wiggle room for like, oh, well, we'll get one again. And yes, you lose plays, but to not make mental mistakes. And I know that no team is perfect, but that to me was what we saw yesterday. Miami made mental mistakes. They didn't come up and make big plays. They misread things. From the quarterback perspective, misreading that cover 2 at the end of the game and throwing to the corner for an interception to end their season. Indiana just doesn't make those mistakes very often. And you're like, the quarterback is part of that. Like, you need to have the ultimate quarterback to elevate the rest of the team. But to me, that's what I saw. And you, Fitz, you talk about the outlier. That's so hard to do. That is unbelievably hard. Nate, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, but Indiana also, almost cost themselves a national championship with 2 of those very mistakes, right? An offensive false start, and then also the late hit on the quarterback. So that's football, right?
So I agree completely with what you're saying. Is that no team is perfect, but in the span of that game, I felt like Miami made more of those mental mistakes, and that's what coaches want. Is they want to be the clean team. And they want their team to execute, but few can actually pull it off. And we almost saw, in Miami pull off we're going to out-talent you with their pass rushers. I mean, those guys were wrecking shop all like from the third quarter on. And Mendoza, in my estimation, like the quarterback makes up for a lot of that stuff. And Like you have that special talent in that context. To me, is the story of the season, and it's everyone loves that storyline because they're the underdogs that are also the favorite, and it feels like everyone's in love with this story because of what they represented in modern college football. And Fitz, it seems like I retweeted something the other day of people are still trying to spend their way to a national championship game with this being the most fresh template. So I guess, like, do you think it's repeatable? Do you think Penn State has a repeatable path with what they've done in the portal to not be Indiana like for like? Because I don't think their scheme is as rigid. I don't think their scheme is as highly tailored to elevate certain types of players. But I do think like they have a plan of, we're going to put this combination of things on the field and try to win with not the best, 5-star lineup across the board.
Yeah, I think a lot of programs and coaches will find themselves in a much worse situation by trying to replicate it, by trying to do what they did and finding themselves without the proper scheme, without the proper fundamentals. Indiana's tackling, is unbelievable. Like they did not allow Miami's playmakers and their guys that can, seemingly run through an arm tackle and all of a sudden nobody's stopping them. That just didn't happen much last night. It's still a college game. There's still going to be some holes that open up. And by the way, I love the Skycam. Thank you to whoever made that a full-time adjustment and a part of the playoff schedule, because it's awesome. But you see Indiana's team defense, really. It's more like a basketball team than it is a football team. You're moving all in one direction. You're playing help defense and you're cutting off backside, cuts and things of that nature. So it was fun to watch. But no, it's going to be. It's the outlier for a reason, right? This guy obviously knows how to coach. He obviously knows how to build a program and do it quickly. Penn State has an opportunity to elevate themselves and to sort of turn around where they were at and, build on that. And I think they have a great opportunity in the next couple of years to be back in the playoff. But at the same time, that's lightning in a bottle, and it doesn't happen for a reason. Like there's several examples out there of programs that tried to do similar things and just going to come up short because it's an outlier for a reason. That would be all I would say on that. So kudos to them to being able to do that. I'm very curious to see where they go from now, because you've got this foundation that includes a national title, which is unbelievable. National championship Indiana, or national champion Indiana, not something I ever thought I would say about football.
Yeah.
But now you build on it, and where do you go from there? Do you find yourself in a situation where you feel that you need to spend to keep up your side of how everything has gone so far? Like the Indiana fans, the expectations were never there, and now they're there. And I'm curious to see how they sustain it, how they ride this out. They spent more money in the portal. They've been more successful in the portal. And, Nate sent a clip from Mark Cuban this morning that says you have to spend wisely. Well, they're kind of going in a direction that is further away from what they've done in the past. Will it work? Possibly, because anytime you add talent, it helps. But it's a very fascinating situation. But you got that ring, so that makes up for so much.
Can I just
go for it?
I feel like there's and you listen to Herb Street and maybe Saban to a little bit of an extent last night. It feels to me like this isn't revisionist history, right? This is this is a present day thing that happened in July. Was PFF identifying the top 50 players in college football, right? ESPN did 100 maybe in I don't know, May, June. Indiana had 3 of the top 50. Okay. And I'm guessing who they are, T. Frank, but do you want to take the guess so that I can put you on the spot?
Mendoza, I'll go with.
Nope.
Really?
No.
Really? Interesting.
And that's the catch, right? Is Mendoza wasn't even on the top 50. Okay.
Was it? Well, now I want to know who it is. Like now, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna tell you. And it's very important, right? Pons is one.
Okay, that makes sense.
Pons. Okay, so what position?
Cornerback.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kamara.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Did he make a play last night?
Yeah, he did.
Sure did. And Surratt. So a receiver,
I don't think Surratt's even their best receiver, honestly. I think he's great, but I don't know that he's their best receiver.
I guess this notion that Indiana won a national championship devoid of talent is the thing that I'm like pushing back on. Right?
It's not devoid of talent. It's not devoid of talent. It's the aggregate of talent. Yeah, it's the aggregate of talent and where it is, I think, as well. Like, if I were looking at the offensive and defensive lines, and again, in the trenches is where football, like the heartbeat of the disparity in talent in college football resides. You have NFL bodies and you have guys that are going to be like, oh, that guy's big when he's walking around at his regular day job. But that's the difference in this particular sport, is that you have these freaks. Like, those Miami edge rushers are 270 and run like they're 255. It is crazy. And Indiana does not have those players on their team. So when you're making these estimations, like, if you're looking too close at the details like me, you're not looking at like, okay, which is the better team? That's where I would make the determinations of Indiana will struggle to run the football, and they're going to have a problem protecting the passer. Now, Indiana's offensive line is much better as a team overall, and I don't think Miami is super well coached. Like, there are parts of the team that are well coached. I don't think Mario Cristobal is a great coach. And so was there an elevation of the talent at places? Sure, but not to the way that Indiana was able to take their talent and put it in a scheme that absolutely redline maxed their abilities. And that's, I guess, my point. Is like, it's the, if you had a 2000s Alabama football team versus Indiana gets steamrolled because they had both of those things. They had talent coached to the red line, and they had future NFL players all over the field. And again, Nate, you're right. Like, those guys are going to go and play in the NFL, but are they going to be stars, or are they going to be guys that are on the roster? And so that's I guess the what normally tips the scale in college football is that plus timely coaching.
Yeah, when you add Mendoza to that mix, I think it reinforces all the things that everybody already knows, right? Which is, if you have role players who fit and do the things they need to do all over the, like, just in general, if that's your general, find a role. Again, that clip that I sent to Fitz about Mark Cuban from last night, talking about having a role, feeling good about it, and having that throughout the roster. But then you have these impact positions and guys who can play and would play anywhere at these impact positions. You're gonna be successful. Like, you're gonna find success. It doesn't guarantee it, but certainly it puts you in a better position if you have it at these areas that have been really hammered home over the last, what do you think, Team Frank, 5-10 years of like, hey man, your edge rushers, your cornerbacks, the guys that protect the quarterback,
once you have
the quarterback
to pay
himself.
Last 3 or 4 years, once you have to actually pay, and there's some choices you have to make, and you don't get to just have every talent at every position. Yeah, absolutely. In the last 3 or 4 years, this matters so much. This is part of it. Z-Man says average age at Indiana, the starters, is 23. I think that is part of the conversation, in the sense of those guys are going to play well. If they're starters on that team, they've seen a lot of football, and you're not going to surprise them with anything. Miami isn't going to surprise you with anything you haven't seen before. You have to beat those players. They're not going to not make a lot of mental mistakes, even though they will make some mental mistakes. Any other thoughts here of how it relates to Penn State, and how any of these lessons that we learned yesterday, you think, I don't want to go too far into hyperbole, but like, things that make sense to you that kind of superimpose over what we might see from Matt Campbell going forward, Fitz?
Did Mendoza's QB draw have to come on 4th and 5? Really? Like, we talk about how all this stuff relates to Penn State. It's like, come on, man. We don't need more than that. It's just piling on at this point. But no, not really.
Because it was a QB draw, not a QB option.
Right.
It wasn't a jet sweep option. Yeah,
it was just cherry on top.
Were you guys surprised at all that that Indiana kicked the field goal to go up 6?
A little bit.
Yeah.
I think the situation. Yeah, the situation. What was it? It was a longer fourth down. It wasn't like a short fourth down.
7, maybe?
It was
Yeah.
The false start. It was 7, right?
Yeah, I think that's a little too far for me, given the situation where if you were to give them the ball, now they're at midfield and they just need a field goal to tie it, then they need a touchdown to win it, and your defense has been cooking all game. So I think that one made sense to me, but I understand in the era of hyper aggression and trying to put the game away, like it would have been a gamble of gambles to do it. Let's get into the transfer portal and talk about Penn State's.
I think it was the right call because it worked. No, sorry.
Boom.
Actually, I need to pivot because we need to talk about Antifragile Brewing Company. Probably had a good time last night watching the game. You'd had a better time if you had a beer from Antifragile. Nate, tell us more about Antifragile, please.
Yeah, great beer. State College, East Calder Way. It is the friendliest locale and has, as I said, the best beer in State College. They care about the product and they do it all in-house. So literally the stuff that is being made in the back room is what comes out of the tap, and it's always excellent and it's always rotating. So, I spent some time actually this weekend talking to their brewmaster, and just great guy, and who is like so energetic and enthusiastic about the product. It's always refreshing to have people and places in downtown State College that care about the community and that care about elevating the experience. And Antifragile is, like, to me, as a person who cares about downtown State College and cares about the community, it is like this shining example of how to do it. So if you are in the mood for a beverage downtown, Antifragile is where you should go. You should also get a cheesesteak there at Uncle John's. And then while you're at it, you should take home a loaf of their bread from Gemelli Bakery, which is the newest addition to their portfolio. So they're doing a ton of things, and all of it is exciting. All of it involves carbohydrates. So, maybe keep an eye on that. But other than that,
plan ahead, plan accordingly.
Make it a cheat day. Make it a cheat day.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. I'm always so enthusiastic to talk about it because genuinely they are just such a great addition to the community.
Let's do this as well. So this week, any weekend, any day where you go to Antifragile Brewing Company in downtown State College, tell them you heard about it here on the BWI live show. Make sure if you're in town at all, you go support them. We appreciate people that support the people that support us. But Friday, January 30th, and then the hockey game on the 31st. I know there's going to be a lot of you coming into town for those things. There's a wrestling BJC duel, and then the hockey game at Beaver Stadium. Big weekend. So let's pack the place downtown. Make sure before or after, you're going to need a little bit of extra winter padding if you're going to be outside at a hockey game. So maybe you have a thermal layer on the inside from your favorite place downtown for Antifragile Brewing Company. Appreciate them.
Get yourself a breakfast, John, before you go to the game. The cheesesteak with the bacon, eggs. It's great.
Now let's talk about the transfer portal. We are in the, technically season. Alberto Mendoza is now in the transfer portal because Miami and Indiana, they have a window for the transfer portal for players to go into the portal. And, of course, players can come out of the portal at any point. But as I've said, like at a certain point, the teams have chosen whether or not you're coming out of the portal because they probably aren't going to just wait to add you. So we're in the technically part of the season. So I just want to get kind of the rules and the baseline. Fitz, if you can give us the kind of rundown for fans who are going to give us the rules in the comment section or that are unaware of the rules here on the live chat as to how all these things are playing out, kind of the rough outline I gave, but then how all of this can go if Penn State is looking for more players to add to the roster.
Yeah, from a Penn State perspective, probably not much in terms of what's happening incoming. Indiana and Miami are of course, they were the last two to wrap up their season, so they now have a small window. You saw Mendoza's brother go in early this morning. There's going to be more of that. I mean, again, winning a national championship is great, but I'm sure not everybody on every roster is happy. So there's going to be some movement there from both squads. But just looking at what Penn State still needs and looking what potentially can be out there is probably not going to have much of a ripple from those two teams to Penn State. So we will see what happens with that. The window is closed. Asterisks right beside it because it's still technically within 48 hours of Friday when it closed because it's a business day thing and there was a holiday yesterday. So if you see guys pop up today, maybe into tomorrow, that's the result of that. This is it. There's no spring window anymore, which is, again, like I said, probably going to be challenged at some point. People are probably going to get to the end of spring, find out where they're at on the depth chart and be like, well, I don't want to be here. Like, it's not going to work out for me. And those coaches who don't have them high on their depth chart are like, I mean, yeah, I wish there was a way that you could go too. So it's very interesting how April, May is going to turn out because it's going to be legal challenges and things like that. But for now, I mean, this is the hand that you're dealt. Penn State's roster is pretty well set, still trying to find stragglers, trying to find 26 guys, trying to find because the signing day for 26 is in early February, trying to find maybe potential JUCO guys, maybe just guys that are still out there in the portal to fill space because you got to get to the 105 and Penn State's floating right around there right now. It's actually much closer than I think people understand. But there is some gray area. Yeah, go for it.
I was just going to ask Nate, because you've got the numbers. I know you've been doing the numbers. So Z-Man wants to know, are we at 105? Can you give us as close to you have the specifics of that for Penn State?
Yeah, I have it up here. And this is all like nobody identifies these things anymore, right? In terms of who's a walk-on, who's not a walk-on, right? The NIL era has blurred all of those lines. The rules have blurred all of those lines. So take this with whatever grain of salt you would like. Portal out. Penn State has lost, right? Got guys who left. And this is, like, let's be honest about this. Some are, see ya.
Yeah.
There's no tears shed.
Don't come back. Oh, no. Yeah.
50 guys from Penn State's 2025 roster that left. 4 of them I had as walk-ons, right? So 46 scholarship guys. 2025 guys from last season that were retained. I've got 52, right, with 15 walk-ons. You have to, when you account for the seniors that left, Penn State's number last year was like 124, 124. Yeah, 124-ish. Portal in, I've got 39 guys that have announced coming through the portal. 2 of those technically walk-ons. And then 16 class of 2026 guys, 11 that are currently enrolled, and then 2 walk-ons. So that puts the number for the spring at 102 with 17 walk-ons. And then as soon as those 5 that have not enrolled yet get to Penn State, then that makes it obviously 107 with 19 walk-ons. So, so at 107, and then that's where it gets very blurry. Is the grandfathered?
Yeah, like do they have walk-ons. 10 more spots? Do they have 12 more spots they can have?
No, I mean I think like what's curious to me and is actually part of the roster management conversation is your willingness to spend. Right, every guy that you carry on that roster has an expense attached, right? In some capacity, right? You are paying for something for them to be on your team. Is right? How are you maximizing yourself within the rules in terms of the number of players that you're carrying, but also not wasting money, right? Not wasting resources. So, do they want to get to 110? 115, right? I kind of doubt it, honestly, because part of the conversation last spring, if you guys remember, was Iowa comes to the top of mind when the House decision was on the docket. There was kind of this trend of programs that communicated to their players, to their walk-on programs, more or less, hey, like this is a good time for you to go to the portal so that you can explore your opportunities, because there's not going to be a spot here for you when everybody gets to that 105. Obviously, the rules changed by the time House was approved to where those walk-ons could be grandfathered in and you could have over that 105 limit. But in one sense, it was, yeah, you want to be ready for the 105, but in the other sense, like from a dollars and cents standpoint, it was a relief to administrators, right? Like, oh, this is a get out of jail free card in a lot of ways, which I know makes everybody uncomfortable and is in some ways a sad reflection of the sport and how it's changed from what college football used to be. But also, it's
especially with those players, with those walk-on players that, since Rudy, we've glorified as like the heart and soul of college football and sports in general and the love of the game. And to then just be, kind of cut in the math of the money transition it sucks. And so, okay, so that's where we are in kind of the money and the numbers aspect. The hypothetical I'm not going to ask you guys, because I don't want to put you on the spot, is you have so many players in the portal. And I understand that college and being enrolled is part of this conversation, academics, all that stuff. In the spring, like if you lose guys to injury during camp, can you add guys from the portal if you've got room to like, okay, we are now going to add blank. Let's say it's a player that was at Penn State and isn't at Penn State anymore because they entered the portal and they did not find a new destination. Free agency in the NFL, where you'd go and pick up a guy off the street, that would be a version of this, because there are, and I don't agree with the chat that a lot of these guys are getting bad information or they're getting bad advice from agents to go into the portal to try and get them a deal. Because if you're being hired to represent somebody, the thing you want to do is represent them and you want to go get them money, and then they go into the portal and they have nowhere left to go. A lot of these guys either are being pushed out from a place or they're getting bad advice. And I think playing and being on a team is more valuable to these players than not. And so, is there a free agency aspect of this, or could there be a free agency aspect of this in the future? Because, as we've talked about, the number of players you have on your roster and the ability to play all these players is going to factor in once you have a reduced number of total bodies on the roster. So just an interesting kind of wrinkle to the transfer portal conversation, and one that I know probably doesn't matter in the long run of things, because the main players that they want to play and win a championship with are on the roster already. But just, how all these things, it feels like there are no hard rules. So whatever the rules are what the rules are. I do want to pivot to Fitz. Do you have something?
Yeah. So there is the hard rule is the roster cap, right? The 105, which is, when I say a hard rule, still in flux because of the grandfathered situation with the walk-on. So you've got a little bit of a buffer there. So Penn State's true number, we're probably not going to know, because you have to have designated these guys as grandfather guys. Now, you can take a pretty educated guess as to the guys that were on the roster as walk-ons last year, or actually last summer. So before, I guess when the House settlement took effect. So if a guy showed up in July, August, there's a DB that I can't remember his name. He was added to the roster in the fall. He's not going to be grandfathered in.
Okay.
So, but you've got this number that you have to work through. But unlike the NFL, when you talk about losing a guy in camp,
can't cut.
There's no injured reserve. There's this 105 is, hey, you're on the roster. So if you tear up your knee in the spring, you're still on the roster, right? You're still part of this 105. So you can't clear space, put him on injured reserve. And that's kind of my whole hold up with this whole thing, is there's no practice squad buffer. There's no injured reserve buffer or anything like that. So you have 105, you get the guy that's injured, you now have 104. That's kind of the rigidity of
zero sum. Yeah, that's the thing.
That's what makes it tough. Yeah,
I was thinking about that, of we talk about these players as this is the team that's going to win or lose in the fall, and I was like, well, this is the start of the team. We'll find out who's actually playing when we get to the games, because it's only attrition. It's only downhill from here.
Yeah, and here's the other thing is with the 105. think some of the confusion is people see that the scholarship limit was lifted off of the 85 and now it's 105. And yeah, you could give out 105 scholarships. It doesn't make any sense to do so because that puts you right up against that line, number one. So if you're trying to have flexibility in a recruiting class, you're trying to have flexibility in the portal, you want to have that ability to slide somebody in there if you need to. And you've also got spots like, and I can't, this is sacrilegious on my part, but like you're not putting you're not putting two long snappers on scholarship. You're not putting two punters, three punters. You're not filling out your special teams with scholarship money. And that's on one conversation, the designation between walk-on and scholarship doesn't really mean anything anymore. But on the other hand, to the people that are paying the checks to fund these scholarships, which are still a thing, like this is still something that people, donors, whatever, have to pay for. It kind of renders that point moot, except for those guys that are writing the checks. So that 105 is tough in that regard, and you're probably going to find teams will carry 95 scholarship guys, leaving themselves a buffer to either carry extra specialists or carry in-state kids, because this is still a fabric of the program situation. This is walk-ons haven't gone away. We've seen, I think the last day I've seen another preferred walk-on slot go out. Hank Lustig committed last week, State College kid, Justin Lustig's kid. So you've got this ability to sort of fold over the fabric of your program, which Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa, these programs that have had wonderful walk-on programs still get to keep that in a little corner over here, while also understanding that the roster build has to continue in the factory in that 1 to 95. The 1 to 95 is fascinating because not everybody is the same age. Not everybody develops at the same age. So you're talking about playing 50 guys, but also that leaves 45 scholarship guys that you're still in developmental mode with. So I think that it's very interesting because we talk about the NFL model and how they have fewer players, but number one, they can go out and sign anybody that they need to. I mean, not anybody that they need to, but they can sign a capable body off the street. You can't really do that in college. And then on top of that, all these guys are judged at the same level for the most part in the NFL. So 1 to 53, if you're a rookie and you're not carrying your weight, they're going to cut you. If you're a freshman and you're not carrying your weight at Penn State, you've got to wait to a certain time and then going to hit the portal after the season. So like that is the difference in terms of developmental curves with college football. It's still going to be a part of how Penn State and everybody else builds their roster.
Well, it has to be. At some point, somebody has to take the time to develop a football player. Like, we can't all be in the mode of, okay, well, if you don't produce, you're out on the street, because then you're just throwing away talent and potential, and somebody actually has to coach. There's coaching, and then there's just putting, like the actual development side and the teaching side of coaching, which I'm passionate about. I think that's really important to the future of this thing we all love. So let's talk about Penn State specifically. Let's get into the transfer portal and the critical additions that the team has put through its roster transformation, as Nate outlined for us a few minutes ago, about just how dynamic the change has been. So I wanted to give just names. I wrote 4 players, 2 on each side of the ball, the most important additions through the transfer portal that will, like in the success and failure in the blueprint for Penn State in 2026. And so I wanted to go through this exercise with you guys and see what you think of who are the most important, most critical adds via the portal this offseason. So Fitz, I see you filled out the rundown, so I'm going to start with you.
Oh, very nice. See? Being prepared
and you gave
helps.
3.
Failing
that.
To prepare is preparing to fail on your end. And that's why I get Rocco back, because it was the easy one. We talk about, and we're going to try and tie this back into Indiana. Like I said, Penn State's not going to replicate what Cignetti was able to do at Indiana. It's a unicorn type situation. But what I did say at the end of that was, hey, now they've won and they've an opportunity to spend, and now they're appealing to guys in the portal, high school guys. They're in on 5 stars now. So all that winning right off the bat has positive ramifications for them, right? They're now playing in a different tax bracket. They're now in a different area where they are kind of in a different tier overnight, essentially. Rocco Becht is the guy that can get you wins right away. And I think that when we talk about Rocco Becht versus Ethan Grunkmeyer, it's a worthwhile discussion for, hey, what's this going to be? But I don't think you can look at it and say that it fundamentally benefits Penn State more right now to keep Grunkmeyer and keep developing. Now in the future, absolutely could do that. I'm a big Grunkmeyer fan. I think he's going to be successful at Virginia Tech. But Beck is the guy that's going to bring you in and get you wins right away. And I think that is sort of the baton passing for a guy that's got 1 year left. And then
redshirt senior, right? Like, I mean, we've seen it time and time again of the final year quarterback in college football going to school X and helping that team win. Like, whether or not it's a national championship or getting to the playoff or having a successful season, this is a blueprint of finding a veteran quarterback to bring to a team.
Yeah, starts, experience, right? All that stuff that is going to make your entire team be more successful. And you look at what look at the national championships the last couple of years. Mendoza, I believe senior, like redshirt senior. He's older than most. Will Howard, older than most. JJ McCarthy, I think it was a senior at that point, or maybe a true junior.
He was whatever it was. He was the outlier of being
guys
a true
that
junior.
have but guys that have started a lot of games. And Grunkmeyer looked good at the end of the season for Penn State. Absolutely has not started a lot of games. So like those are fact-based arguments in terms of experience, in terms of what can you possibly bring to the table in an offense that you're familiar with. All the stuff that we've hashed out over and over again. We're not going to know the right answer until October, basically. But at the same time, this is a guy that can bridge the gap, get you to the next one. And then it's very interesting to me because Alex Mansky is the same. No, I guess he's 1 year behind Grunkmeyer. He's going to be a redshirt freshman this year. Played in 3 games for Iowa State. Excuse me, I completely blanked on the school that I've been talking about for 3 months now or 2 months now. But you've got an opportunity to figure out if he's ready to go to be the next guy, or if you're going to have to dip into the portal for an expensive quarterback in 2027. That's an important part of this whole trade-off is you're getting 2 quarterbacks, one with the chance that you think can be pretty good, which is pretty much a step behind Grunkmeyer, but still in the same kind of ballpark, and then a guy that's really experienced. So Becht is by far number one. He's the most important transfer portal addition. He's the most important position on the field, and he's a guy that can set you up at a higher standard, a higher foundation for 27, 28, and then eventually how this rolls into recruiting, portal, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Very important, the quarterback and the dominoes that fall there. As we just talked about for the start of the show, I mean, I don't think Indiana is the team they are without Fernando Mendoza pulling the trigger on offense. Nate, Rocco Becht is off the table, so you get the number 2 pick.
Just taking a chance on saying that they wouldn't be the same without their Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
Yeah, and future top 10 pick.
Stance.
So Nate, who's your most important portal addition?
Honestly, we can't overlook a guy like Rocco Becht. It's just essential. See what I did?
See what I did there?
Yeah. I don't understand why everybody hates me. One thing I did talk to last week, I ran a couple of stories talking to Bill Seals at Cyclone Report, and I think this is like important context because it kind of gives you both sides of the Rocco Becht equation, which is they thought at Iowa State that Mansky was going to be the starting quarterback this coming year, right? Like the trajectory was that Rocco Becht would leave after his redshirt junior season. But he didn't have that season. That wasn't how it went. Right. Everybody kind of understands the 4-game slide that Iowa State had, and Becht did not play as well. He was hurt, right, and obviously had surgery after the season. So that's, I mean, it's gonna he just took a picture that was posted to social media over the weekend. Like his arm's in a sling, right? Mm-hmm. So I do think that there are conversations to be had of, hey, what's his availability going to be?
Yeah.
At the onset of his Penn State career. And then who is he, right? Like which quarterback is he going to be? And there are so many contributing complementary factors to how quarterbacks play in the first place that I think that all of those are going to play into it. But it's like,
I think we can still see Mansky play, by the way, this year. Like, I think he can still be part of the offense. He's 225 pounds, and I don't think Rocco Becht wants to take a beating this year. So if they want to have, an option quarterback, I think that's on the table. That if you wanted to put your freshman quarterback out there with Peyton Falzone and have him be the option quarterback, either of those are better options than 6'1" Rocco Becht, who had 2 injured shoulders last year.
Yeah, right. And that is kind of the dynamic that we discussed previously of how quarterback rooms are going to look in college football moving forward. And this is one of them. You're going to have a proven guy at the top, and then you're going to not have proven guys behind him. And so it's, but ultimately, to Fitz's point, and to double down on it, the quality of Rocco Becht's performance, like no pressure, but how good he is going to dictate so much success that this team has this season. And it's the difference between, wins and losses.
Yeah. Fitz, you've got a defensive guy, and I think you read my article because we've got the same, top 2, both Iowa State Cyclones. Who's your number 2 most important transfer portal player?
I read all your articles, T. Frank, because everyone should read all your articles on BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Remember, sign up right now. Marcus Neal, safety, because you're looking at Swiss Army knives. You're looking at guys that can do a lot of different things for you, and you're looking for experience in the secondary. You see, by watching Zakee Wheatley this year, how much experience in the secondary matters, how much that, sometimes when you don't have it, you find yourself out of place. And Neal is a guy that's going to come in playing a different defense, admittedly.
Yep.
Danton Lynn's going to change some things up. But there, again, like we said with Beck, there's no substitution for starts. There's no substitution for experience. And this is a guy that gives you many different options from his safety spot. Could he be not the third safety in name, but the third safety in terms of hybridness in terms of what Penn State is going to do with a, are we going to call it a 4-2-5 still? We're going to call it a 4-3.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so difficult to know what this defense is going to look like, but that whatever that fledgling number is out there, the 3, the third linebacker, or the 5, the 5th defensive
sub package,
it's going to be the same.
Because you can also do sub packages, right? Like, it doesn't have to be the base defense. Like, you can do 3 safety sub packages if you want on third down.
Yes, the prowler. You're looking at different opportunities for a guy that can make plays, and he's done that in the past. And Penn State went to the portal and really fortified its secondary while keeping a lot of things on the outside. Terry Smith's guys on the outside. I think Darius Dixon's in line for a star turn at some point. I think the secondary feels pretty good when you can have that kind of experience out there. And Marcus Neal, to me, is I don't want to call him a true hybrid, but he can play the run, he can play the pass. There's good things that come with guys that are well-rounded like that.
We have a question here in the chat from Emirs quickly before we get to Nate's number 2. He said, would Xavier Gilliam have been a good fit in Lynn's defense? What they constructed versus what I think they were interested in getting I do think there's a divergence there. One of the things they were looking for was a replacement for Xavier Gilliam's athleticism and his ability. So some of the guys they didn't get had a little bit more athleticism in the profile, and so they brought in a lot of defensive tackle, nose tackle types. So it looks like and feels like the answer is no, but I do think they want versatility up front. They want athleticism up front. They want guys that stop the run, but they want guys that can do both and have that hybridity.
They don't want one thing or the other. And that's kind of what we got, was one thing or the other with the smaller guys. But also you don't want all 330 pounders. And I know that's tough to, when you don't have one thing, that's what you want. And you can play off a 325 pounder with a 295 pounder and be very successful. Penn State's done it in the past with a laundry list of guys. And I think that's really what we're looking at. Is it's not all in on just having 325 pound run stuffers. You're going to need guys that can make it work. And I do think that they would find a spot, and would have been very happy to find a spot for Xavier Gilliam essentially as a starter.
Yeah. Nate, you're number 2. Who's your number 2?
Brock Riker.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Who else is going to be the center?
Dom Ruley.
It's interesting. I also thought it was interesting they officially updated the roster. He's 285 pounds, and I know that I've made a big deal of that, but I do think the fact that listed at 290, 285, I understand on a 6'4" person, 5 pounds is not that big of a deal. I lost 3 pounds between one week and the other weighing myself at the gym, and it was nothing. At the same time, like you would like that to be on the higher end.
Why
you
would
like
feel
that
the
to
need
be
to work that in there just to tell,
because
other than telling anybody that you lost 3 pounds? Congratulations, be frank. You did.
No. I'm trying to gain weight. I'm trying to get bigger. And like I was excited. I'm like, oh man, I got bigger in the gym. And then the next week it's like, no, you're still the same weight.
Clip
it's
this
just
and
like,
play it back when you get into your 40s, buddy. I'm trying to gain.
Boom. This is the preventative maintenance of trying to be 205 and have most of it muscle, so that when I'm in my 40s and I'm 200, it's about the same. So yeah, tell me more about Brock Riker. What I'm interested to see how he fits.
I want you to tell me, but I do think of all the piece, like of all the things for next season that have some level of uncertainty in terms of like, what do they have after Donka and Cooper Cousins? Who and like, let's be honest about Cooper Cousins. This year was not what anybody expected for him, right? So of which I think in injury, I know we don't talk about injury, but I think may have played a little bit of a factor.
Did it? This is the thing.
I don't know.
That's right. I don't either. And like, I think there was a little bit of, I don't know how to even phrase it, but like, yeah, he didn't, let's just leave it at that. He didn't have the season that they were expecting him to have, or he was expecting to have. And I do think it's interesting. It fits. The thing that I get from getting Brock Riker out of the portal is they see him as a guard, because if they thought he wasn't a guard, then they wouldn't, if they thought he was the future center at Penn State, they wouldn't have brought in a guy who is a center only that we both discussed. And the thing with Riker, I really like his game. I think he's super intelligent. I think his positional acumen is way above average, especially considering he's a redshirt freshman. For it to translate, kind of like Alexander McPherson on the other side of defensive end, I think he's got to get in the weight room and add mass, because at a certain point, it doesn't matter how strong you are for your size. If you're undersized, you do not have the same literal impact on defensive linemen or on offensive linemen that you have because of your technique and because of your pound for pound strength. And to somebody in the chat, I think Z-Man was asking how big was Nick Dawkins? 6'4", 290, 95, somewhere in there. And didn't have the strength to make an impact either. When he won, it was with athleticism, which wasn't exceptional, but when he was quick and he was able to win blocks with technique, he was able to win. Riker has those things, and I think a growth potential. He's already listed at 6'4" on the roster, so the frame is there. He just needs to be as a redshirt freshman, a redshirt sophomore, starting early in his year, in his career at a place like Texas State. There is the potential that he turns into one of the best offensive linemen on the team. Yeah. And that is a huge win. But again, like on the defensive side, there's a little bit of projection there that you need to account for. Yeah. And like Fitz, these guys need to stay healthy in the weight room. There's been a lot of guys that get injured and don't get this time in January to get bigger and stronger.
Yeah, you're banking on that for the projection, right? Is to make that leap. We talked about Devontae Ross when he got here. Just the facilities, the nutrition available to him, all that kind of stuff at a big top tier program like Penn State is very different than Troy, Texas State, what have you. So I don't think he's going to have trouble putting that weight on, getting stronger, and continuing to make strides. And also, the other thing to remember about him is he's coming off a redshirt freshman season, so he's 2 years into a strength program. There's still time for outlier growth there. So I think he'll be able to put all that together and get bigger, get stronger. It's just a matter of like, you don't really know how good these guys are until you get them in the mix. Like you probably don't understand how good Dom Ruley is, like, because he is a backup, because he has been a backup for a long time, but also he's been a backup and a sort of a linchpin of that offensive line room for many different reasons. And Penn State brought him back for good reasons. And he had other, from what I understand, he never went in the portal, but he had other schools that were pretty interested in bringing him in, Power 4 schools, which is, it's hard to find linemen, right? And it's hard to find experience. It's hard to find all that kind of stuff. So I think there's going to be more of a battle than you would typically think for a guy that you went out to the portal to get, an outlier from your Iowa State guys, a guy that had Alabama looking at him, a guy that had other big programs that have offered him. Makes sense that you would think that he moves into the starting center role right away. I'm not sure it's that cut and dry. I think it's a good problem to have if Dom Ruley is a guy that you think can play every down and be a guy that, is on that pivot for you. But at the same time, there's a lot of unknowns that come with the portal, and this is part of it. And it's not saying that he's not going to be a starter, not saying he's not going to be good, but you just don't know until you get him out there. So I'm curious to see how that evaluation comes through. But physically, we watched TJ Shanahan a year ago come in very underdeveloped, and that was at Texas A&M. And he worked his way into eventually a starting role, and he made a lot of gains under Chuck Losey in the short time that he was here. So I think that you can see strides still being made for guys that are not just coming out of high school, coming out of maybe their freshman season and making those sort of gains. So I'm excited to see Riker. I think Trevor Burr is the starter out of that group that you're bringing in from the portal. Like that's a guy that, like, you can talk about Riker maybe sliding in on paper as the center, but I think Burr in reality is the guy that's going to play maybe more snaps than anybody on the offensive line next year. Like that is a guy that you can look at and say that he's, I hate to say definitively going to be a starter, but like that's one that
it's hard to find somebody that's going to beat him, given, again, the advantages he has of knowing the offense and playing in it last year and being one of the better offensive linemen. I missed him on my initial eval going through the O-line because he wasn't a starter in some of the games I was watching. And like a true talent for them in an offense where they had a guy. This is the same thing I think I'd say about Dom Ruley in that conversation about center is he was a guy with upside that was playing and was probably new and wasn't necessarily playing at the high end of his ability. Dom Ruley is 295, 300 pounds, filled out and strong, athletic, all those things. It's about, is Riker going to surpass that? And if he does, then I think Penn State's in a great situation. But they've got two good options there. And then at left guard, like at that point, Fitz, we're talking about who would be in the battle for that spot. Malachi Goodman? Like, I imagine he's going to have an opportunity to play either tackle or guard, given his size and his power. But he's a redshirt freshman. And like, there's a lot of talent on this line, but it is kind of thin in a sense where you don't have a lot of obvious competitions for starting spots based on what we know about the guys we're penciling into starters.
Yeah, I think that you've got another year of development for some of those guys. You mentioned Goodman, you mentioned Alicini. You got some other guys on the roster that, you feel good about their future, maybe in 27 more so than 26. But because of the numbers, because of the limited nature of how many actual offensive linemen they have, like that changes the calculus on these position battles. So I think you're going to see it a little bit light to begin. Does a guy like a freshman like Mason Bandauer work his way into that realm?
I like him a lot.
Game reps, not necessarily getting game reps, but also working their way into a travel roster position or something of that nature. So that's what I'm excited to see. It's competition. It's going to bring out the best in some guys, and some guys are going to find it harder. And like I said, you don't know. Like we were talking last year, I mean, there was a position battle in camp between Amari Campbell and Don DeLuca. Doesn't seem like it was all that close in hindsight, but they found a guy that they thought, gave them a little bit, going back to the Dom Ruley conversation, gave them a little bit of, he's played at this level, he's experienced at this level. But at the same time, Campbell eventually rose as the cream. So it wouldn't shock me if Brock Riker ended up in that situation at all, but I'm saying it's going to be more bumpy at the start than you probably expect.
So this is kind of a tail of the conversation here at the end, and something that I think is the main question Penn State fans have. I want us to go through all these things before we answer it. Is this going to be a competitive roster based on what you've seen? And I know that we're taking a lot of projection. We just mentioned the caveats of the projections. That does factor into how confident you feel about the competitiveness of this team next year. So, Nate, I'll start with you here to end the show. Do you think Penn State is going to be a team that is competitive in the way that fans want them to be? I'm not saying win every game, but be in every game and obviously have an opportunity to win whether they do or not against the 2026 schedule. Do you think there's an option for what you've seen them build here?
Yeah. Yes. Look, my struggle and the thing that I really have a hard time grappling with is, and I said this on our message board yesterday, so I'm repeating myself to anybody who read through that. But the calendar of having to decide, right, for us and fans, everybody just keeps getting pushed up. And I think that I don't know Like full stop. In a world where Indiana won a national championship yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
How do any of us have any idea how difficult or easy the schedule is going to be next year? And I understand there's plenty of like, yep, Rutgers, yep, Maryland, yep,
yeah,
right. Some things just stay the same, but sometimes they don't. And
I would say Rutgers was more competitive this year than most Rutgers teams. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, Rutgers took Penn State to the wire, and Penn State needed that win to get to 7-6. Do I think Penn State was better than a 7-6 team this year and is retaining enough pieces from the most generous reading of that team, combined with the best players coming from an 8-4 Iowa State? Like, do I think there is plenty of potential there? Absolutely. Yes. I mean, if they're bad next season, I would be surprised. I really would. So to the question, will they be competitive? Yeah. I mean, honestly, like, full stop, they better be. They better be. I mean, for Pat Kraft, for Matt Campbell, for everybody that's watching this, that is absolutely the expectation and standard that they are walking into this season. That doesn't mean that the expectation should be 11-1, right? I mean, there's all kinds of wiggle room there for where the wins and losses play out. It's just a matter of team identity. Like, should they be on that spectrum of pretty good to potentially really good against a schedule that, I mean,
so let's just,
like,
for the podcast audience, and you're right. For the podcast audience, next year at Michigan, USC at home, Wisconsin at home, at Washington. Those are the games I would say that are the questionable games as far as like mid-tier teams that have an opportunity to play up or down. Minnesota's in there. Minnesota with PJ Fleck, like, they are always going to be what they are. So Fitz, I don't want to helmet scout here, because I agree with Nate that we don't necessarily know how good Penn State is going to be, because we don't know those variables we just talked about, but we do have a sense of like the team they've put together and like whether we like it or not, and whether we think it can be competitive against whatever they may see. And I guess I'm curious, do you have an opinion on that? Do you think they can be competitive next year?
First off, I have great news, because the schedule is coming out at 5:30 p.m. on January 27th, according to the Big Ten.
For real?
We'll know.
Greg wrote it. You didn't write. Come on, you didn't read Greg's story this morning. Yes, so we're excited to see that. I think Ohio State, not Ohio State, Oregon. Ohio State, Indiana was the game that came out mid-October. It's like they teased Oregon, Penn State last year. So we see the light. It's going to happen. But more importantly, back to the conversation that we were having, the helmet scouting situation, the helmet scouting exercise for 2026 isn't as much about, hey, what's Washington going to look like? Wisconsin's overhauling its roster. Like, they're very active in the pool right now. What are they going to look like? It's about, there's no Ohio State, no Oregon, no Indiana. That's pretty good to me, because the three teams that you think that you're going to have an idea of what they are not on the schedule, which is good. Because you have an idea of what they're going to be, you have an idea of what you think they're going to be, and that's going to be good, right? Maybe Indiana takes a step back, but like you defending national champion, Oregon's always good, or whatever. So that is step one, is to figure out what's not on the schedule and kind of do a little dance, rejoice, because of that's a good thing.
Michigan's interesting, as they're rebuilding as well, but they're rebuilding with a veteran head coach who has a very similar DNA to what they were previously. We'll see how that plays out. A lot of those players.
It's
exactly. Exactly.
There's still a lot of talent to work with there. And they have a quarterback that's another year experienced, and that's going to help them. But I don't want to waste time looking at Wisconsin or Maryland or whoever else is on the schedule, USC, because you just don't know. 9 months out, 8 months out, whatever it's going to be. But I'm happy that there's a schedule on the horizon. We're going to see that next week, and then go from there, because you look at when they play some of these teams, and sometimes that matters as much as the teams that they play.
It's a great point.
Catch, of course, you never want to catch Mike Locksley in September. You'd love to catch him in October and November. It's that sort of thing that plays into it. You're going to Washington to play. The last time Washington came here, it was in November, and that was a tough thing for them to do in a whiteout. So there's different levels at play here. So I'm excited to see how that's going to work out, but I'm not ready to make that leap. From a Penn State perspective, what I think I know about this team, I think the volatility from, I don't think it goes from 6-6 to 12-0 with this team. I think the volatility is a little bit lower with what you put out there, especially with an experienced roster and an experienced quarterback.
They are, Nate, I'll give my final thoughts after you.
No, I was just going to say something stupid, which is Matt Campbell doesn't know how much he has to hate Mike Locksley yet. He doesn't even have that. He doesn't have that experience.
He also probably doesn't know your Dan Lanning shtick there, so he's going to have to learn that one too.
I'm just going to keep going with it. It's fine.
I'm interested in Fitz, you said it there at the end, the volatility of this roster. I am just as guilty as fans when it comes to seeing a player, seeing their upside, the obvious football potential a player has, and then projecting a level of development that gets them close enough to where some of these guys are going to have to play. Cooper Cousins, in my estimation, is going to have to play. Right. And so that is going to force him to play well or play him up to his level of potential. And maybe that's the case. Maybe that's not the case. There's a lot of that on the roster. We spent a lot of time talking about the offensive line. We haven't even talked about left tackle. Again, Owen Alicini. I think all of us here sitting on this roster think a 6'8", incredibly athletic left tackle is going to perform well. But as a redshirt freshman, that's a huge leap. And yet if some of these guys make those leaps in an offense where the coaching staff and the play calling and the quarterback have all shown both cohesion and performance, I think that they have made plays. You feel like there's an optimism that they can find the right players to put in the situation to execute the game plan. And to me, I'm going to bring it all the way back around to the Indiana concept of this doesn't have to be the Stars team. It has to be the team that executes the plan better than their opponent. They have to be unbelievably well coached, disciplined, and not make mistakes. Defensively, I think there's a plan. I think they have a very clear blueprint of what they want to produce, and I think they have the bodies to produce that, but they're going to need points on the other side of the ball. And that mesh of bringing in the offense, kind of, porting it in and having the critical pieces in place, and then rebuilding a defense in a new image, I think there's an opportunity there because, again, they have 26-year-old defensive tackles, and I just want to say, there's an opportunity for that to work out, and I think they can be good. I don't know if they're a college football playoff team next year, but I do think they can be good, competitive, and fun to watch. And that last part, I think, is the one where if they're that, then Penn State fans are going to be happy with year one of Matt Campbell. We're going to talk more about different things tomorrow, more portal conversation, more recaps with Greg Pickle. And, of course, what is the star of the BWI Live transition in this time of year is the recruiting show coming up on Thursday. There's a junior day coming up. Oh, no, Fitz, we didn't even get to Keemon Spell.
You didn't play on music.
That was, we need a new intro because everything's different now. We don't have the same, all those players are gone. Anyway, we'll figure it out. We'll talk about Keemon Spell at some point. It's good news. You go read it at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. I'm going to put the promo up here as we get out of here. We'll talk to you later.